And we're back on the news, and we've got interesting thing to discuss because the end of this week, actually this weekend, is a Tokyo International Conference for African Development, which is known as TICAD. It's a 6th conference, but it's the very first one to be held on the African continent. And as the name says, it's a thing that came out of links between Africa and Japan out in 1993, and it's now being held in Kenya. It's one of the latest of a series of many conferences, international conferences, that have taken place in Kenya, including the very last one, which was UNCTAD, which took place at the end of July. So we have the Cabinet Secretary in charge of the Foreign Ministry, Amina Mohamed, a familiar face to all of us, but you must be absolutely exhausted by now by all these conferences that are have been going on.
No, I'm energized.
I would ask it in two different ways, so I probably will. Number one, what benefits are we getting from having all these people coming through Nairobi, meeting in Nairobi, having all these conferences here?
You mean apart from what we do for the hospitality sector and the money that's injected into the economy? It also brings to Kenya, and especially for WTO and UNCTAD, cutting-edge experts on the different issues that are under discussion. To have these discussions here, and I think you saw during UNCTAD that we actually had live coverage, live streaming of all the sessions that we had, which I hope was very beneficial to Kenyans. But over 6 billion was actually injected into the local economy, which I know trickled down. Yeah, because I got a lot of feedback from even the taxi drivers. For instance,
there's some complaints, and I'll be slightly on sort of the surface level. Some complaints about the fact that you've got so much disruption coming to the capital city that whereas you might have 6 billion shillings injected into the economy, there are people who complain that they're losing money because they cannot get to their meetings, they cannot get to where they're going, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, I think that comes with the territory. Whenever any country hosts a conference, there are some disruptions, and I think these are sacrifices that Kenyans are happy to make. Just given the fact that since we started having conference diplomacy and hosting these conferences here, the impact of the travel advisories that we had, right, was diminished, if you like. And we were able to showcase our country, right, as a secure destination for tourists, as a secure destination for conferences, as a secure destination for investment. And I know that I won't be telling you anything new if I repeat it, and I like repeating this, that today Nairobi is the most attractive investment destination on the continent. It has beaten many others that were there before us, and we actually take pride in the fact that this is happening.
On a more serious note, though, there's an argument that can be made that whether it's WTO or UNCTAD or even TICAD, the meeting sort of tends to float in the ether in the sense that it could have taken place anywhere. It's the same set of people meeting, it's the same set of discussions going on, so there's no difference had it taken place here, had it taken place in Tokyo, Dar es Salaam, wherever. It's just a set of people coming into an airport, going into hotel rooms and into conference rooms.
You know, because the government lobbies so hard for these conferences, I don't want to actually look at it in such a simplistic manner.
Or cynical manner.
You said that, I didn't. There are so many benefits that are derived from having people actually come to our country, enjoy its hospitality, realize the potential that this country has, and choose to actually locate a presence here in either Nairobi or even we have some companies that have located their offices in the counties. But it's just that feeling of great satisfaction that we get when we see that immediately after these conferences, either you have a multitude of people who actually stay to enjoy what this country has to offer, whether it's the flora or fauna, or in fact what this city has to offer itself, but also what comes back in a very short period of time, just in terms of the types of investment that then get interested in coming back and having a presence here in our capital. But other than that, that just to advertise, and you know that because you're a media person,
yes.
To advertise for 7 days on any of the international media media houses or media stations, or costs billions of dollars, right? We actually do not pay much for that, and yet what we get in terms of just looking at the balance sheet, right, is much more than we put in, right? And I'll just give you an indication. For instance, if you hosted a medium-sized conference in any country, it would cost you between 400 and 600 million Kenya shillings, right? If you actually invested that in hosting a conference, and as a result injected into your economy 7 billion, right, Kenya shillings, I think that's a worthy investment. And I don't know anywhere where you can get those returns in such a short time, right? So it's a good investment. It's a good way to showcase your country. We are all very proud of this country, but we want others to actually see it and be able to appreciate what we see in our own country, but also to just interest them in coming back and doing business with us, in actually seeing the potential that we have, just even in terms of, and we talk about our manufacturing capacity not being, up to queue, but I can tell you for sure that many people come in here for conferences and end up exporting a lot of products, from our country. So in all those ways, I think it's magnificent to actually be able to host this. And guess what? We compete for this. We actually compete to host.
We bid against other cities.
Other cities and other countries.
I want to pivot very swiftly to regional issues. And obviously the big regional issue that's on everyone's mind right now is South Sudan. We've had the crisis going on now almost since independence, but certainly since 2013. This year it flared up again. There's also things going on, including just today we're getting reports about one of the protagonists seeking medical treatment. Yesterday, the Secretary of State from the US, John Kerry, was here speaking about South Sudan. It's a very broad issue, but I want to narrow it down to something very specific. Kenya seems to have leverage over the South Sudanese since the new vice president is here asking for food aid, asking for financial aid. Why can't we bring that leverage to bear in being able to get these people to sit around a table and say, we shall bring peace regardless of what happens?
Okay, so but before I go to South Sudan, I think just on TICAD.
Yes.
Let me conclude by saying this. That we began actually today with the pre-conference activities. Yes. We expect to have 73 activities all over and events all over the city. We're expecting upward of 10,000 people coming, delegates and participants coming into Nairobi. And just by the mere fact that we have such a huge number of people coming in for a short period of time, I think does wonders for the economy. But also the subjects that we'll be dealing with are subjects that are very topical to us today. From the economy, transformation of our economies on the continent, to resilient healthcare systems being put in place, to promoting stability. And that brings me to South Sudan. That's one of the issues that we are actually going to be addressing here at TICAD. And finally, we're just extremely proud to be hosting this as Kenyans on behalf of our continent. And I would like actually to take this opportunity to again say thank you very much to Africa for allowing Kenya to host the conference. Now to South Sudan. As you know, on the 7th of July, violence erupted once again in South Sudan. A very close friend of ours, partner, a country that we actually helped to come into being. So I'll begin by saying that for Kenya, the stability, the security, peace in South Sudan is a priority and is of paramount importance. And we will continue to do everything that we can to make sure that South Sudan finally enjoys the peace that its people deserve.
But are we doing everything? Because they have investments. These are protagonists I'm speaking about. They have investments in Kenya, they have family in Kenya, and like I'm saying, even now they're even coming and saying,
and that's not going to change. That's not going to change.
So why is it that we can't bring them to peace?
We have people from the neighborhood who live in this country, and we have Kenyans who live in those countries, right? We have Kenyans who live in South Sudan as we speak who work in South Sudan. We have companies that work in South Sudan as well. And we have South Sudanese companies that operate in Kenya.
Indeed.
That is the normal state of affairs, and it must continue regardless of what happens in South Sudan. That's a situation that will continue. We're committed to it, to making sure that Kenya always provides that support that South Sudan needs. On the violence, I think we are all very, very. First of all, we were shocked by another, if you like, outbreak of violence in South Sudan. But be that as it may, we immediately called, as you know, a meeting of foreign ministers here in Nairobi. We adopted a communique, and it's because we wanted to take action as quickly as possible. We adopted a communique, right, to address the situation that was occurring and evolving in South Sudan. And one of the things that we addressed was the issues to do with the airport, with the access into Juba, with support for civilians, humanitarian access to places where.
But the broader point is they don't seem to be taking their own piece seriously. Think about Riek Machar. Think about Salva Kiir. We are almost, one would argue, rewarding them for bad behavior by inviting them into institutions like the East African Community. I still go back to my original question. Why isn't it that we can bring our pressure to bear?
We are. I think we are. As a region, I think, like I said, we had a meeting of foreign ministers. We went to Kigali, we had a summit, and went to Addis and had another summit. Basically making sure that we did not take our eyes off South Sudan. And the encouraging steps that they started to take was as a result of the pressure that was brought to bear, and the encouragement that we gave them, because bringing pressure alone doesn't work. You need to be able to actually sit down and have a serious conversation, but also offer the opportunity for people to be able to move forward, and so we did all that. Now on Dr. Riek Machar, I have the same information that you have, that he's not well, and that he's receiving treatment, and I want to wish him all the best.
All right.
On South Sudan, I think for us the priority is the implementation of the agreement, and that cannot wait. It must continue, right, regardless of everything else.
All right. And we have to leave with them, Madam Secretary. Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck this weekend